1. Microexpressions. These are the lightning-fast facial flashes that last less than a split second, and they expose the truth even when someone is trying their hardest to hide it. Imagine asking someone a simple question like, "Where were you last night?" They smile and say, "Just chilling at home." But for a fraction of a second, their face shows something completely different, a quick flash of fear, contempt, or guilt that vanishes instantly. That tiny leak is a microexpression. You might catch their eyebrows shooting up in surprise while their mouth claims everything is fine, or their lips curling slightly in disgust right before they reassure you with a calm voice. These involuntary movements happen because real emotions bubble up faster than the brain can suppress them. In everyday life, you'll see when a friend says they're so happy for you, but a split-second look of jealousy crosses their face. Or when someone claims they didn't cheat, yet their eyes show panic for just a moment. Most people completely miss these because they're so quick. But once you train your eye to catch them, you start noticing these emotional leaks everywhere, in arguments, job interviews, and even casual conversations. Liars can control their big expressions and words, but they struggle to stop these automatic flashes that reveal what they're really feeling. 2. Inconsistent body language. When someone is lying, their words and their body rarely stay on the same page. They might confidently say, "Everything's fine, I swear," but their body tells a different story. Their feet point toward the door like they want to escape, while their upper body tries to lean in and look relaxed. A person who normally talks with big, open hand gestures may suddenly freeze their hands in their lap or start fidgeting with their sleeves. Their shoulders might shrug, uncertainly even as they claim to be 100% sure. You'll notice the mismatch in real time. One part of their body says, "I'm calm," while another part screams discomfort. Posture that was loose and natural suddenly becomes stiff and robotic when the topic gets serious. They might cross their arms protectively or turn their torso slightly away from you, even while maintaining a smile. These inconsistencies happen because the brain is overloaded trying to build and maintain the lie, so it loses control over the body's usual signals. The conscious mind focuses on the words, but the body leaks the truth through small movements and posture shifts. Once you start spotting these contradictions between what they say and how they move, you'll catch lies that most people completely miss in everyday conversations, arguments, or important discussions. Have you ever noticed someone's body language completely contradicting their words? Tell me about it in the comments. 3. Verbal hesitations and pauses. Liars rarely speak as smoothly as truthful people because their brain is working overtime to invent and remember a fake story. You'll hear it clearly, lots of ums, us, and awkward silences as they search for the right words. They might repeat your question back to you, "What was I doing last night?" to buy extra time. Simple questions suddenly get long, winding answers filled with filler words and strange pauses right before the most important part. A truthful person usually answers naturally and directly. A liar often slows down dramatically, speaks faster in some spots, or trails off mid-sentence while trying to keep their story straight. They throw in extra, and much more than usual when they're struggling to fill the gaps. These verbal glitches happen because creating a convincing lie in real time is mentally exhausting. The brain has to make up details, remember what it already said, and monitor how it sounds, all at once. Pay special attention when the flow suddenly breaks or when they hesitate right before delivering key information. That pause is often where the lie is being carefully constructed. Once you start listening for these hesitations and unnatural speech patterns, you'll begin catching deception that would normally fly right past you. 4. Excessive details. Liars often try to make their stories sound more believable by drowning you in way too many unnecessary specifics. Instead of simply saying, "I went to the store after work," they'll launch into, "Yeah, I left the office around 5:45 because my boss kept me late. Then I hit traffic on the highway, stopped at that gas station with the broken ice machine, bought milk, bread, and those cookies you like," giving you a flood of random details no one asked for. They add tiny sensory bits like what the weather was like, what song was playing, or what the cashier looked like, hoping it makes the story feel real and lived in. Truthful memories usually come out simpler and sometimes a bit messy. Fabricated stories tend to be overly polished with extra flourishes that weren't needed. This over-explaining happens because they're trying hard to convince you and themselves that the story is true. The more unnecessary details they pile on, the more suspicious it becomes. Watch for when someone volunteers far more information than the question requires, especially on a simple topic. That's often a strong sign they're busy building a fake narrative. Have you ever caught someone oversharing tons of extra details when answering a basic question? Tell me about it in the comments. 5. Baseline deviations. One of the smartest ways to catch a liar is by first knowing how the person normally behaves, then watching for any sudden changes from that pattern. Everyone has their own baseline, how they usually talk, move, make eye contact, and react to questions. A normally chatty and expressive friend might suddenly become quiet, give short one-word answers, and stop gesturing with their hands when you ask where they were. Someone who is typically relaxed and laid back might start fidgeting non-stop, sweating, or sitting unusually still and rigid. These deviations happen because lying demands so much mental energy that their normal, comfortable behaviors break down. The brain focuses so hard on constructing the lie that it loses control over their usual mannerisms. The key is comparison. If you know how they act in normal, low-pressure situations, any dramatic shift during a specific question becomes a loud red flag. A calm voice paired with nervous fidgeting or confident words with a suddenly closed-off posture. These mismatches reveal the internal struggle. Once you learn to establish someone's baseline quickly, spotting these changes becomes much easier and more accurate in any conversation. 6. Neck touching or self-soothing. When the pressure of lying kicks in, people unconsciously start comforting themselves through small physical gestures. You'll often see them rubbing the back of their neck, lightly stroking their throat, or tugging at their collar as if it suddenly feels too tight. Other common self-soothing moves include running fingers through their hair, rubbing their arms, or repeatedly touching their face around the mouth and nose. These actions spike right after you ask a direct or uncomfortable question, or when they reach the most critical part of their story. It's their body's automatic way of releasing built-up tension and calming the anxiety caused by deception. Even if their voice sounds steady, their hands keep betraying them with these nervous comfort touches. Truthful people rarely need this kind of constant self-soothing during normal conversation. Liars do it because the internal conflict creates real physiological stress that their body tries to regulate. The more these gestures cluster together, neck rubbing combined with hair touching or face covering, the stronger the signal that someone is feeling uncomfortable with what they're saying. Once you start noticing these self-soothing behaviors, you'll catch moments where the body is screaming, "This feels wrong," even while the mouth keeps talking smoothly. 7. Avoiding or overly intense eye contact. Eye contact is one of the most telling windows into whether someone is being honest or hiding the truth, and liars often get it wrong in very noticeable ways. When lying, people tend to fall into one of two extreme patterns. Some suddenly avoid eye contact altogether. They look down at the floor, stare at the wall, check their phone, or glance away every few seconds as if maintaining eye contact has become too uncomfortable. Others do the exact opposite. They lock eyes with you in a stiff, overly intense stare that feels forced and unnatural, like they're trying too hard to prove they have nothing to hide. Both behaviors stand out because they break from normal, relaxed eye contact. Avoiders feel too guilty, nervous, or ashamed to look you in the eyes while deceiving you. The intense starers are usually overcompensating. They've heard that liars avoid eye contact, so they force themselves to stare directly at you, but it ends up looking robotic and strained. Watch carefully for the shift. A person who normally looks at you comfortably while talking may suddenly start darting their eyes or give you an unblinking, hard stare exactly when you ask about something important. The timing of this change is often the biggest giveaway. These unnatural eye contact patterns happen because the brain is too busy managing the lie to handle eye contact naturally. The eyes end up revealing the internal pressure the person is under. Mastering this sign helps you detect deception even when the words sound perfectly smooth and confident. 8. Story inconsistencies. Liars can prepare a story in advance, but keeping every detail consistent under pressure is extremely difficult. This is where many lies fall apart. A person might first tell you they were alone at home all evening, but later casually mention, "We decided to order pizza together." Times shift. What started as "I left at 7" becomes, "I think it was closer to 8:30. People appear and disappear from a story, and the order of events gets jumbled when you ask them to walk through it again. Truthful memories tend to stay relatively stable even if they have small natural gaps. Fabricated stories, however, often crumble when gently challenged. You'll notice contradictions in key facts, changing timelines, or details that don't line up when repeated. Pay attention to how they react when you casually ask them to repeat or clarify part of their story. Honest people might add natural details or correct themselves easily. Liars frequently get defensive, pause longer, or give slightly different versions the second time around. The more complicated the lie, the more inconsistencies tend to surface. Small slip-ups might be innocent mistakes, but multiple contradictions, especially on important points, are strong evidence that someone is making things up as they go. This technique is powerful because it doesn't rely on guessing emotions. It simply compares what they said before with what they're saying now. Once you start actively listening for these mismatches, you'll catch lies that would normally slip through unnoticed. Have you ever caught someone changing important details when they retold their story? Share what happened in the comments. 9. Lip compression or tense facial cues. The mouth and face often betray a liar, even when their words sound perfectly calm and convincing. When someone is lying, you'll frequently see their lips pressed tightly together into a thin, flat line, a clear sign of stress, discomfort, or holding back the truth. Their jaw may clench visibly, the muscles around their mouth tighten, or they show a quick grimace that flashes across their face and disappears. Their smile often looks forced and unnatural, never quite reaching their eyes. These tense facial cues tend to appear right after you ask a difficult or direct question, or when they reach the most critical part of their story. While their voice stays steady and casual, their face reveals the internal battle happening inside. You might also notice repeated swallowing, pursed lips as if physically stopping themselves from saying too much, or a slight twitching at the corners of the mouth. Unlike big gestures that can be faked, these small facial tension signals are much harder to control because they come from the body's automatic stress response. The brain focuses on crafting the lie, but the face leaks the pressure and conflict. When you combine lip compression and tense facial cues with other signs like microexpressions or self-soothing gestures, the picture becomes much clearer. These subtle leaks show that someone is uncomfortable with what they're saying, even if they're trying hard to appear relaxed. Mastering this final sign gives you a powerful tool for reading between the lines in any conversation. Which of these 9 ways to spot a liar do you think is the most useful? Drop the number in the comments and tell me why. These subtle cues can completely change how you read people. Start paying attention and you'll never listen to stories the same way again.